beautiful day here at Pescadero. I'm going to paint waves and rocks, but I'm going to try to do a more zoomed in sort of composition, you know, kind of an action shot, which I don't do very often. Like, you know, what I mean is like dramatic breaking waves, or, you know, like white water spraying everywhere. I'm not sure how dramatic I'm going to get. So I'm going to be working on an 11 by 22 inch panel today, and the brushes I'm going to use are these number 8 natural bristle flats. I'll use these for scrubbing in, and then these synthetic flats for doing short loaded strokes to kind of define the shapes and get more accurate colors. I got my usual palette of colors here, although I did squeeze out a little bit of Viridian. We'll see if I use that. That's not a usual color for me. I am using liquid as my medium, odorless mineral spirits in a brush washer. I also have this soft brush that Araya gave me, and I think this might be nice for kind of softening some of the edges of the white water, or where the spray comes up off these rocks here. Okay, so here is the composition. There are rocks over here with, you know, the wave crashing over the top. You can kind of see it right over here, that sort of thing. And then occasionally it'll sort of break large over here and kind of spray up. So I want to capture some of that. And this would be the top of the wave right here. And then I put the horizon at the like 1/4 mark, like 1/4 of the wave from the top, so that actually this wave here is going to be at the top third using rule of thirds. And then there'll be a few, you know, kind of waves coming in the foreground. As you can see, the angle sort of changes as it comes in, so I tried to capture that as well. It's nice to be able to get some diagonals into your composition, especially when you're doing like a panorama, because a lot of things, you know, there's just a lot of horizontals. All right, so I'm going to start with the dark portion of the rocks, and I'm using ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and burnt sienna. And I'm going to thin this with liquid and a little bit of mineral spirits. All right, thinning with a little bit of liquid and mineral spirits. As I've mentioned, when I do my sketch at first, I'm not looking for, you know, sort of specific shapes, just trying to get the big shapes right. And then, you know, once I like the big shapes, then I can come in and be a little more specific. I think maybe have a little rock out here. And I'm going to warm these up too. I just want to kind of place them, but I'm going to exaggerate the warmth in the rocks. All right, next I'm going to mix up a color for the sky, and I am comparing the sky to the whitewater to decide on the value. All right, so I'm starting with a mixture of titanium white, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and a touch of dioxazine purple. And I'm using the sky to sort of carve out the whitewater shapes. And these values and colors will most likely get adjusted, but I just want to cover the panel. And I'm keeping the paint thin at this point. All right, so for the water at the horizon, I'm using a mixture of titanium white, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and a little bit of burnt sienna. So for the water in the foreground, I'm actually going to add a touch of dioxazine purple, maybe a little bit of this mixture over here as well. This was the mixture for the horizon. Okay, I want that to be just a touch lighter. So I'm going to add some more titanium white. The waves in the foreground have a bit more green in them, so I've added a little bit of this Viridian, which I don't use very often, as I mentioned, but I'm giving it a try today. I'm going to tone it down with a little bit of burnt sienna. All right, so for the waves breaking over the rocks, there are areas of shadow and areas of light. I've mixed up two different piles of paint here. This is titanium white with a touch of ultramarine blue, and this one just has more ultramarine blue. This will obviously be for the shadow shapes. And I can come over this later with warmer whites, but I want to start you know, with these cooler whites. I'm gonna have to turn this panel out of the direct light in a minute or two, but just wanted to try to do the scrub in, you know, with some light on the panel so you guys can see better. And obviously these shapes are pretty, you know, it's just like abstract shapes, looking for an interesting pattern. Also, I noticed there's like some green right along here, but I'll add that afterwards. And I decided to put a bit of a breaking wave here too, to keep the eye from rushing right off the edge. So there's the basic composition. As you can see, these the initial strokes here are pretty transparent, and I am going to try to leave some of the tone and the sketch showing through so that I get a little bit of that orange complementing some of the blues and greens. All right, so I've just been using the synthetic flats to kind of further define the rocks and, you know, put a little bit of color in, but I'm still keeping it fairly transparent. As for the foreground, I just kind of started sketching in, you know, a random pattern that looked interesting. All right, so I switched back to this new natural bristle flat just because it's kind of like a mop. I can put on a lot of paint. I still plan to come over this with, you know, more, I don't know, more detailed strokes, if you want to call it that, with the synthetics. But, you know, if I want to cover an area quickly, like change the value of a whole area, then this is definitely the way to go. All right, so I'm reinforcing the sky colors, and I'm continuing to use this natural bristle brush because it's working. I'm still trying to do shorter, more loaded strokes than, you know, during the scrub in. So towards the horizon here, it's kind of a purplish color, then it gets more towards a cerulean as it gets higher. All right, so one thing I've noticed is that right above the breaking wave, there's usually a bit of mist. So just by lightening the area, you know, above the breaking wave, kind of makes it look more realistic or more believable. Okay, so here is what I finished up with. And as I mentioned, I don't normally do scenes, like action scenes like this where there's breaking waves. I try to pay attention to the edges and keep the edges soft, but also look for an interesting abstract pattern for the whitewater. This one, I might change this one a little bit. There's like kind of a little peak here, but it's pretty subtle. But I mean, it's kind of like a triangle peak. I might change that, make it more sort of random, like this one over here. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the shape of the whitewater, and then how there's like little bits of broken wave here where you can see the green. One thing I'll say about the rocks is I used to, you know, eliminate a lot of the little rocks and then kind of simplify, but I like it a lot better by leaving some small rocks. I mean, it's more accurate, but I think it's also just more interesting visually. This rock wasn't really actually here. I just added it for balance. And as the tide dropped, I noticed that there actually were rocks over here. I really had a good time, you know, carefully looking at the surface of the water for different colors. Mostly what I was seeing was reflected sky. And then in between the reflected sky, there were these beautiful green colors. And I did use a little bit of Viridian, but not that much, because I'm able to mix a similar color using my phthalo blue, almost identical. And so that's just my natural thing to go to. But, you know, Viridian is a useful color for sure. You probably couldn't see this from a distance, but I added some strokes of really saturated purple, you know, right around these rocks and the whitewater. I was actually seeing little hints of that, but I kind of exaggerated it. And then, you know, but once I got it inside, you know, it doesn't look too strong at all. All right, so the reason I've been hesitant to paint like close-ups of splashing waves or, you know, sort of dramatic action like that is that I want it to feel convincing. And sometimes, you know, like if you were to do a distant shot of some whitewater, you know, it doesn't, it can still seem like it can read as real in a way, but when you freeze a dramatic scene, it just seems like unnatural, right? It's very hard to capture the power and the energy of something like a massive splashing wave. So I've been hesitant to do it. I think one of the key things is to keep energy in the brushwork, and then also, you know, soften the edges and that sort of thing. But anyway, I plan to experiment some more with this sort of thing. You know, let me know your thoughts. What do you think about, you know, big splashing waves, big dramatic waves? Do you know, are there painters that you like that do that sort of thing? I've looked at Homer, and I've looked at, you know, who is it? Frederick Waugh. But still, like I still think it could be done better. There's another way to do it, possibly. I don't know. But that's one of the fun things about painting, is trying to solve these problems. And that's not to say that the paintings that Homer or Frederick Waugh have done are not amazing paintings. They're wonderful. But hey, if we can move the ball forward a little bit, why not? So I'm going to continue to experiment in this direction. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's the Patreon support that keeps me making these videos, so it is much appreciated. I got a bunch of videos on there, material list, so check it out, link below. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.